Hello everyone, my name is Natalie and welcome to or back to my channel. I'm pretty sure I haven't filmed or uploaded a video since October. It's not even that I was unmotivated or I didn't want to, it's just things kept happening. I ended up moving house. I'm now in a flat by myself. I'm renting and I just kept getting ill. I've had chest infections, I've had COVID. It's not been a good time. So I'm finally like in a place where I'm better now, so I can actually start filming and getting back into this. And I also figured what better way to start this up again by showing you all the books I've bought since December. First up, we have a book that I didn't actually buy but has been lent to me by my mum. She read this and she said it's fantastic. And that book is The Switch by Beth O'Leary. And this follows our two main characters, Lena and Eileen. Eileen is Lena's grandmother and Lena has had a really bad time at place. So she's taken a 2-month sabbatical from her job. She's gone to stay with her grandmother. But thing is, her grandmother's also getting a bit tired of life. She's almost 80 and she really wants to find love again. So they decide to have a life swap. This book also takes place in Yorkshire, so it's got a lot of good northern humour in it, I hear. And yeah, apparently it's just a fun read and it's a good time. So looking forward to this one. Next up, we have a book that I originally saw on TikTok and it's a non-fiction book, and that is Women Who Run With the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I'm like 95% sure I've butchered that name, I'm so sorry. The way that this woman described this book is basically every woman in her 20s needs to read this book. So as I'm 28, I'm not going to be in my 20s for much longer, so I figured let's get this read now and see what kind of useful tips and advice it has. The next book we have, I bought purely for nostalgia reasons, and that is The Dancing Bear by Michael Morpurgo. I remember reading this book around when I was 8 or 9, and I will say I do remember this book being a lot bigger. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I think it is just because at that age I wasn't really reading larger books, or maybe because I enjoyed it so much it felt longer, I don't know. But this follows our main characters. One is a bear. If I'm remembering right, I think he's in the circus and he starts off as a baby bear, so he's in there right from a cub, and it follows a young girl, and I think she's also part of the circus, I can't remember. But basically this book follows them both as like young children, and it follows them into adulthood, and it's all about this bond between this girl and this bear. I remember it being beautiful and I can't wait to read it again. Next up, we have two books that are in the same genre and are written by the same people. They're part of the Treasury collection these two are doing at the moment. And the first is Treasury of Folklore, Seas and Rivers, and the next is Treasury of Folklore, Stars and Skies. And these are both... Okay, I've made a mistake there. So this one is by Dee Dee Cheney and Willow Winsham, and this one apparently is just by Willow Winsham. But I read the Treasury of Forests by them and I absolutely loved it. I adore all things myths and legends and fairy tales and folklores. I love all that kind of stuff. So I think I'm really going to enjoy these two and I can't wait to get them read. These seem like they're going to be like autumn, wintry reads to me. Next up, we have a memoir, and that is Never Have I Ever, My Life So Far Without a Date by Katie Heaney. I have also never been on a date. I've never dated, I've never had a boyfriend. I'm also demisexual, but that kind of plays into it, but honestly it's never been on my radar. It's never been like something I've desperately wanted, but I am so curious about other people who have had similar experiences to mine. Next up, we have Reynard the Fox. It's retold by Anne Louise Avery. So this is basically a retelling of a fairy story called Reynard the Fox, and it follows the folklore, so it's more European folklore. The original retelling I think was William Caxton. I think that was like the 15th century. And yeah, this is basically a retelling, but it's got more modern interpretations, and but it keeps the feeling of the original story too. And also I will say there's nothing under the dust jacket, but it is an absolutely gorgeous shade of, is this maroon, dark purple? I don't know. I'll have to check with my brother on that because he absolutely adores maroon, and he will soon tell me if this is classed as maroon or not. I've just noticed I have another book by Dee Dee and Willow, and that is A Treasury of British Folklore, Maypoles, Mandrakes and Mistletoe. Oh, this one's just by Dee Dee Cheney. Okay, so yeah, again, same as the rest of them. I cannot wait to read this, and yeah, I adore all things folklore. So next up, oh, this one's still got the okay, this one's still got the receipt in, but next up is Alison Weir's 6 Tudor Queens, and this one is the first one in this series, and it follows Catherine of Aragon, and it's called The True Queen. I absolutely adore Tudor history, and I struggle with people who do retellings of stories, just because I am such like a history buff about things that when things aren't represented in the true light, I kind of get annoyed. Not that I'm saying that people shouldn't have like interpretations, absolutely, but when people go too far one way or the other, I struggle. So I'm really curious to see this one. I feel like Catherine of Aragon is more easier because we still have a lot of her actual letters, and she's very passionate, and she in her letters you can tell who she is as a person, and everything is clearly laid out. The next book with Anne Boleyn, see, I am a big Anne Boleyn fan, especially in recent years when we've learned more about her and uncovered more about what she actually did for the country, and not just listening to a story told by men. I could rant about this, so I'm going to stop. This is one that is going to be very popular at the moment, and that is Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. This is the Wicked Witch story, of course, from Wizard of Oz. This is actually a book that was turned into the musical, and now we're getting a film of it. I have been wanting to read this book since I saw the musical when I was 15 years old. So I cannot wait to dive into this. It's actually at first in a series, so yeah, can't wait for this one. Okay, so the next 3 I actually picked up while I was in Aberystwyth in Wales, and I picked this up from the Bookshop by the Sea. So I ended up picking up 2 mystery reads and just one off the shelf. And the mystery reads, one of the books was The Atlas 6 by Olive Blake. Is that, I feel like my dyslexia is playing up now. Is that Olivia? Yeah, my brain's not working at the moment. But yeah, The Atlas 6, obviously it's been very popular. I don't actually know what this is about. I haven't read the book, and whenever it came up on TikTok or people talking about it, I haven't been that interested, but now that I own it, I will definitely give it a read and see what it's about. If any of you have read this, then let me know what your thoughts. The next mystery read was The Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes. I have read some books by Natalie Haynes before. I think she is a fantastic writer of these myths, so she retells them. I again don't know anything about this one, and I've not heard the myth of this one either, so I cannot wait to read this. And it's got a bookmark in that's fallen out. Oh, so this is actually an image of the Bookshop by the Sea, and in case any of you are interested in this bookshop, I don't know if that's pulling up. There's the details. I hope that's pulled up, but if it hasn't, then I will leave the details of this bookshop in the description below. And then the last one I picked up was Lost for Words by Stephanie Butland. And the first line is all I needed to read of this book, like the first line of the blurb, and it says, Loveday Cardew prefers books to people. Same. Okay, next, again, I picked up while I was in Wales, is Welsh Folklore Tales by Peter Stevenson. Again, in this haul you can really see my love for myths and legends and different fairy tales from different areas of the world. So this is full of Welsh fairy tales and folklores, and I don't think I've ever read a Welsh folklore before. Maybe I have, but I haven't realised they're Welsh, so we'll see what they're like. Next up we have a historical fiction, and that is The Other Princess by Denny S. Bryce. And this is inspired, it says up there, but this is inspired by the very true story of Queen Victoria's African granddaughter. So I cannot wait to read this, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I knew anything about this. Like, in the back of my mind I feel like I've read something about this, but I don't know enough of it. So I think I'm going to read this book and definitely do some research on the actual story. Next up we have a second in the series. I ended up reading this book, I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but I read this book. I absolutely loved it because it was a book about books and falling in love with reading again, and I just loved it. And this is More Days at a Morisaki Bookshop. Oh, yeah, I forgot, this one is also signed by the author. So the first one in this series follows our main character as she's just broken up with her boyfriend because she's found out that she's actually the other woman, and she runs to her uncle's bookshop, and it's about her working there, falling in love with reading, and just finding herself again. So I cannot wait for this. I don't know if this follows like after the book or if this is just more things that happened during her stay, but I'll have to read it and see. Next I picked up 1984 by George Orwell. This is a classic. I've never read it before, and considering the way the world is turning, I figured it now might be the time to read it, because I've heard a lot of people referencing 1984 lately, and I just kind of want to know what they're talking about, so picked this one up. Okay, so the next two I picked up actually at TK Maxx, or TJ Maxx if you're in the US. And essentially, when it comes to books I love, I have absolutely zero control of buying pretty different editions of that book. So I picked up 2 editions of Pride and Prejudice. This is the first one, this is the Wordsworth Classic edition. And it's beautiful, and yeah. And also this one is also a floppy book, so I feel this is going to be really pleasant to read. And the next one is the Harper Muse Classic, the Jane Austen collection, and it's this one. Okay, it's baking in the UK at the moment, and I've got my French, like, I'm kind of on the 2nd floor, and I've got like double, like a Juliet balcony, and things and cars are driving past and people are outside like talking downstairs, so I'm gonna give that a minute. Okay, they're gone. Next I picked up, I saw this one advertised, I think it was about a year ago, and kind of forgot it was a thing that was going to be happening, and clocked it in a bookshop a few months ago, so I picked it up, and that is Stroke of the Pen, The Lost Stories by Terry Pratchett. Now, this edition is forwarded by Neil Gaiman, and obviously we know a bunch of the allegations going forward, but these are works of Terry Pratchett's, so I am still going to be reading this. Okay, so ages ago I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and then I read its sequel, which I can't remember what it's called. I didn't realise they had indeed released a 3rd and 4th book of this. Before we say goodbye, and Before Your Memory Fades. I do not remember which is which. I don't know which was the fourth or which is the third, so I'll have to, when I'm ready to read these, I'll have to have a look. But in case you don't know, Before the Coffee Gets Cold is basically got a lot of like short stories centered around this cafe, and in this cafe there is a particular seat you can sit in. You can drink a particular brewed coffee and it can send you either backwards or forwards in time. The only issue is you cannot leave the chair, and the person who you want to go and visit, or the moment you want to go and revisit, absolutely they have to have visited the cafe. So you cannot visit anyone, you cannot go wandering around. It's all confined to that coffee shop, and it's got a lot of like really sweet stories and a lot of people like finding closure, and it is really nice. So I'll see how these two go. Next up we have World Mythology in Bite-Sized Chunks. I actually picked this one up when I was in Yorkshire. I went to a second-hand bookshop and got this one, and I'm kind of curious to see, because I read so much mythology, I am kind of curious how much is going to be new to me and how much I already knew, so I'm more intrigued by this book. Next up, from that same second-hand bookshop, I picked up Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Now, I'm reading it. I've never read Lolita before. It's referenced in a lot of stuff and I do want to read it for that. However, it doesn't sit right with me that so many editions always have a picture of a young girl on it. It just makes me feel a bit queasy knowing what this book is about. If you are lucky enough to not know what this book is about, let me shatter that for you. This is about a middle-aged college professor becoming obsessed and attracted to his neighbour's 12-year-old girl. So, yeah. I may want to burn my eyes after I've read this and try to erase my memory. Next up we have the Tea Dragon Festival. This is a very sweet book. So, as you see, the last clip ended rather abruptly. I am in a whole new outfit with very different lighting. So basically what happened is my camera cut off because I'd been filming for too long. Then I got a message on my camera saying that there was a memory card error. I followed some YouTube tutorials. I tried to fix the error. It worked for about 20 more minutes, and then the error message came back and deleted the other path I'd filmed. So I've got a brand new memory card and we're going to try filming this last bit again. So I'm pretty sure I was talking about the Tea Dragon Festival. So this is the second in the series. The first book is the Tea Dragon Society. I have to put a hold on reading this until I've read the first one. Unless, do any of you know, do I need to read the first one before this one, or can they be read? However, let me know, but I am going to try and get the original one first. Next up we have two more books. My granddad actually gave me these. They're from the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, and we have The Last Continent, and then we have Making Money. I am slowly collecting the older editions of this series, and as I get them in order I am slowly starting to read them, so I've got two more for my collection. Next up we have a series of 3 books, and I don't actually know what this series is called. I've only read one of the books and I actually can't wait to read the other two, because I hear that the main characters of the first book make appearances in the other 2 books. And the first book is House Moving Castle, The House of Many Ways, and finally Castle in the Air by Diane Jones. So yeah, I knew there were 2 more books in this world, but I'd never read them, never been interested in them. But again, when I went up to Yorkshire, I found this bookshop which specialised in like graphic novels and comic books and fantasy books, and also had a large like manga section towards the back as well. The Travelling Man, it was called The Travelling Man, brilliant shop. And so I picked up these 3, and like I said, I absolutely adore Howl's Moving Castle. Loved the Studio Ghibli film as well. I will say, if you've never read the book, definitely give it a read, because it is very, very different from the film. Likewise, if you've read the book, watch the film, because they go in very different directions, but both are still absolutely wonderful, and I love both with all my heart. So I can't wait to see how I feel about these other 2. Next up we have a book I'm kind of intrigued to read, and that is Railway Crimes Committed in Victorian Britain by Malcolm Clegg. I am so intrigued by this. I'm very intrigued by historical things. I'm also very intrigued by true stories, so I'm intrigued about some of the crimes in this book. I don't know if they're going to range from funny and ridiculous to very serious topics, or if they're all going to be serious. So it'll be interesting to see that, especially because the railway started when Queen Victoria was on the throne. So given that these crimes have happened when the railway was very, very new, I can't wait to see what kind of things people were trying to get away with. And lastly, I've got a book I've seen a bit on my For You page on TikTok, and that is A History of Magic, Witchcraft and the Occult. And this book, from what I understand, goes through witchcraft through the ages, so it talks about everything from it being used in ancient Egypt to, I believe it covers the witch trials as well, and I believe it does touch on modern day. So I can't wait to read this, and from what I've heard from a lot of different people, this is a great place to start with a more true representation of witchcraft. Okay everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'm really hoping to be back. I'm much better now. I've got a brand new memory card which will hopefully work, and yeah, so look out for more videos from me. I'm hoping to post at least once or twice a week. Hopefully I can stick to that schedule, but we shall see what the future holds. So but I've completely forgotten how I end my videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.